Iron the fabric. An iron box helps to flatten the fabric and thus enables to mark correct measurements and cut the fabric properly. However, if the iron box is not used appropriately, it might damage the fabric. This session gives essential instructions regarding the right use of an iron box on a piece of fabric. At the end of the session, you will be able to iron using the right amount of heat and moisture on a given fabric. You have to pay attention to a number of factors to properly iron a fabric. In order to get the best result from ironing, you should adjust the amount of heat, moisture, and pressure according to the fiber content of the fabric. If you don't know the fiber content, you should first test the fabric cautiously and begin with a low temperature. The direction that you iron a fabric also determines how good you get the fabric ironed. Let's now watch how to iron a fabric. Iron with the direction of the grain of the fabric whenever possible. It means that you should not go in circles but iron in straight movements along the weave. You should also be careful to not stretch edges or curves by pulling the fabric. Next, we will see how to iron different types of fabric. Ironing of linen requires high temperature and much moisture. Use iron box and press on the wrong side to prevent shine. Or use a cloth for right side pressing. Iron until the fabric is completely dry. Ironing of cotton requires a fairly high temperature and some moisture. Heavy or very firmly woven cotton may need more moisture than a steam iron supplies. Use pressing cloth and iron cotton on the right side for a smooth or shiny finish. Iron on the wrong side for a dull finish. Iron fabric until completely dry. Ironing of wool requires a moderate temperature and always needs some moisture. For right side pressing, protect the fabric with a wool press cloth. Avoid heavy pressure on most woolens. Make sure not to iron fabric completely dry. Ironing of silk requires moderate temperature and little, better no moisture. Silk easily gets water stains. Iron on the wrong side. Prevent water spotting by using a steam iron and a dry cloth. Ironing of rayon requires a moderate temperature. Test for the amount of moisture to use iron on the wrong side. Ironing of polyester, nylon, acrylic requires temperature from low to medium and a slight pressure. It is best to press from the wrong side. Protect the right side with a press cloth to prevent shining. You might have noticed a press cloth being used in between the iron box and the fabric. A good pressing cloth is a necessity to keep your iron box from contacting your fabric so that it prevents scorching, shiny spots, and little stains. It also protects your iron when you use any type of iron-on or fusible interfacing. You need not always use a pressing cloth. Test a corner of your fabric with the iron. If you get a shine or a discoloration, you will want to use a pressing cloth. Let us watch how to use a pressing cloth. You can either lightly dampen your pressing cloth or use it dry. Iron through the cloth onto the wrong side of your fabric, always keeping the cloth between the iron and the fabric. That, we've come to the end of this session. Before we conclude, let's recall what we have learnt in this session. Iron with the direction of the grain of the fabric whenever possible. Ironing of linen requires high temperature and much moisture. Ironing of cotton requires a fairly high temperature and some moisture. Ironing of wool requires a moderate temperature and always needs some moisture. Ironing of silk requires moderate temperature and little better no moisture. Ironing of rayon requires a moderate temperature. Ironing of polyester, nylon, acrylic requires temperature from low to medium and a slight pressure. A good pressing cloth prevents scorching, shiny spots and little stains. You have now learned how to iron a particular fabric. Take our next session to learn how to identify the sides of a fabric.